AITA for firing an employee after his parents died. Okay, so I know this is gonna sound bad right off the bat, but please hear me out before you jump to conclusions. I'm really torn up about this whole situation, and I need some outside perspective because my boyfriend is acting like I'm some kind of heartless monster, and I'm starting to wonder if he's right. This is a long one, so grab a coffee or something. For context, I'm 34, female, and I'm the VP of sales at a mid-sized software company. We're not some massive corporation, but we're doing well enough. Think like 150 employees, decent revenue, and a pretty competitive industry. My job is high pressure. I'm managing a team of about 20 sales reps, plus a handful of sales development reps, SDRs, who are basically the ones cold calling and emailing prospects to set up meetings for the senior reps. It's a grind, and we expect a lot from everyone because, well, that's how sales works. You don't hit your numbers, you don't eat. That's the deal. The employee in question, let's call him Jake, is one of our SDRs. Jake's young, 22, fresh out of college, and he's been with us for about 10 months. When we hired him, he was this super eager kid, always hustling, always smiling. Like the kind of guy who'd show up early, stay late, and crack jokes in the break room that actually landed. He was good at his job too. Not perfect, but definitely above average for someone his age. His base salary is around $60,000, but with commission, he's pulling in close to $90,000 a year, which is insane for a new grad in our area. We were even talking about promoting him in the next 6 months or so, maybe moving him up to a junior account exec role. That's how much potential we saw in him. But then, at the beginning of April, something awful happened. Jake's parents were killed in a car accident. Both of them gone just like that. I can't even imagine what that must feel like. He's an only child from what I know, so it's not like he's got siblings to lean on. When we got the news, Jake emailed our HR manager the day after it happened. The whole team was gutted. My boss, the CEO, and I had a quick call, and we immediately agreed to give Jake a month of paid leave. Full month paid, no questions asked. We figured he'd need time to grieve, handle funeral stuff, and just process. I mean, who wouldn't? We also sent flowers to the funeral and a condolence card signed by the whole sales team. I thought we were doing the right thing. During that month, we covered his workload by spreading it across the other SDRs. It wasn't ideal, but we made it work. Nobody complained, at least not to my face. And we all just wanted Jake to take the time he needed. I checked in with him once via email, maybe 2 weeks into his leave, just to say we were thinking of him and to let him know there was no rush to come back. He responded with a short, "Thanks, I appreciate it." And that was that. I didn't want to bug him too much, you know? Grief is personal. Jake came back to work about 3 weeks ago, mid-May. I was honestly relieved to see him. I figured he'd be a little out of it, but I thought getting back into a routine might help him. Plus, we were starting to feel the strain of covering his accounts. The first day back, I had a quick one-on-one with him in my office. He looked rough. Like, not unshaven or anything dramatic, but his eyes were tired, and he wasn't his usual chatty self. I asked how he was holding up, and he just said, "I'm okay, just trying to get back to normal." I told him to take it easy, that we were happy to have him back, and that he could let me know if he needed anything. He nodded and went back to his desk. I thought it went fine. But then, things started going downhill. Jake's performance tanked. Like really tanked. His job is all about outreach. Cold calls, emails, LinkedIn messages, setting up demos. He's supposed to hit at least 50 calls a day and send 30 to 40 personalized emails. Before the accident, he was crushing those numbers, sometimes even doubling them. But since he's been back, he's barely doing half that. Some days I'd look at his call logs, and he'd have like 15 calls. 15. In an 8-hour day. His email output was just as bad, and the demos he was setting up dropped to almost nothing. Our senior reps started noticing because their pipelines were drying up, and they were coming to me like, "What's going on with Jake?" I tried to give him some grace at first. I mean, the kid just lost his parents. But after a week of this, I was starting to get frustrated. Our sales cycle is fast, and we can't afford to have someone dragging their feet for too long. I pulled him aside again, maybe a week after he got back, and asked if everything was okay. I was gentle about it, I swear. I said something like, "Hey, I know you're going through a lot, but we've noticed your numbers are a bit off. Is there anything we can do to support you?" He just shrugged and said he was trying. That was it. No explanation, no asking for help, nothing. I suggested he talk to HR about maybe getting some counseling through our employee assistance program, but he didn't seem interested. I left that meeting feeling like I'd done my part, but honestly I was a little annoyed. Like, I get it, you're grieving, but you've got a job to do. The next week was more of the same. No improvement. If anything, it got worse. He was showing up late. Not by much, like 10 to 15 minutes, but it was noticeable. He'd sit at his desk, stare at his screen, and barely move. One of the other SDRs told me Jake had been taking long lunches, like an hour and a half, and coming back looking zoned out. I started hearing grumbles from the team. Not outright complaints, but little comments like, "It's hard to pick up the slack when we're already swamped." I felt bad for Jake, I really did, but I also have a team to run and numbers to hit. My own boss was starting to ask questions about why our pipeline was slowing down, and I couldn't keep making excuses. Last week I had a meeting with the CEO and our HR manager. We talked about Jake. I laid out the situation, his numbers, his attitude, the impact on the team. The CEO was sympathetic but blunt. He said we couldn't afford to carry someone who wasn't performing, especially in a role as critical as SDR. HR suggested we give him a performance improvement plan, PIP. But I pushed back. PIPs take months, and honestly, I didn't think Jake was in a place to turn things around anytime soon. Grief doesn't have a timeline, sure, but we're a business, not a charity. We agreed that letting him go was the best option. HR drafted a severance package. 2 weeks' pay, plus we'd cover his COBRA for a month. And we decided to do it at the end of the week so he wouldn't have to come back to the office after. On Friday afternoon, I called Jake into a conference room with HR. I was nervous, not gonna lie. I'd never fired anyone before, and this felt extra heavy because of his situation. I started by saying we'd appreciated his contributions, but his performance hasn't been up to par since he returned, and we had to make a tough call. I tried to keep it short and professional. Jake just sat there, staring at the table. When I finished, he looked up, and his face was cold. Not sad, not angry, just blank. Then he said, "You're fucking kidding me. Go fuck yourselves." And he stood up, walked out, went to his desk, grabbed his backpack and a couple of things and left. The whole office was silent. I was shocked. I mean, I get that getting fired sucks, but to say that to me and HR, it was so unprofessional. I couldn't believe it. I went home that night and told my boyfriend, Matt, about it. Matt's a teacher, super empathetic, always seeing the best in people. I thought he'd at least understand where I was coming from, but nope. He went off, called me and my management team a bunch of heartless pricks, and said we had no compassion. He was like, "The kid's parents died, and you're firing him because he's not making enough phone calls? Are you serious?" I tried to explain that it wasn't just about Jake, that I have a whole team to think about, but Matt wasn't having it. He said I should have given him more time or at least put him on a pay. We ended up arguing for like an hour, and now things are weird between us. He's barely talked to me since. I've been replaying it all in my head, and I'm starting to second-guess myself. On one hand, I feel like I did what I had to do. Jake's job is high pressure, and we can't just wait months for him to maybe get back to normal. The rest of the team was starting to resent him, and our numbers were slipping. But on the other hand, I keep thinking about how young he is, how awful it must be to lose both parents, and then to lose your job on top of it. And his reaction, maybe he was just hurt and lashing out. I don't know. I feel like crap, but I also feel like I didn't have a choice. So Reddit AITA for firing Jake. Be honest, but please don't just call me a monster without explaining why. I really want to understand if I screwed this up. Update a few hours later. Wow, this post blew up. I've read through a ton of your comments and yeah, I get it. Messed up. A lot of you pointed out that a month isn't nearly enough time to grieve something as huge as losing both parents, especially for someone so young. I was so focused on the team and the numbers that I didn't really think about what Jake was going through. Reading your responses made me feel like such an ass. I also didn't realize how bad it looks that we didn't even try a PIP or give him more support. Someone mentioned that our employee assistance program could have been more proactive. And yeah, that's on me for not pushing it harder. I reached out to Jake this morning via text. I apologized for how things went down and asked how he's holding up. He responded after a couple of hours and said he's staying with his girlfriend, and she's been his rock through all this. He was still pretty short with me, which I totally get. I offered to connect him with a headhunter friend of mine when he's ready to look for a new job, and he said he'd think about it. It's not much, but I hope it helps. I'm also going to talk to HR tomorrow about maybe extending his severance or something. I don't know if he'll accept, but I feel like I owe him that much. Thanks for the reality check, everyone. I got a lot to think about.